you're diminish the service in the community, and you are having untrained people who are shrouded in secrecy. Like the whole program, like how are these people paid? What are they paid for? What are their work hours? What are their benefits? How are they picked? What do they report? What are their metrics? How do we track and analyze the jobs that they've handled and what has happened with them? And I think what you're going to see is that, like, there is none of that. It's all shrouded in complete secrecy. So listen to this article, man. It is sick. So Brooklyn, Deshaun Almond, better known as Bigger, chatted with New York City Controller and mayoral candidate Brad Landa in a makeshift sidewalk barbershop offering cuts for free. Two men got beards and their beards lined up. A young boy was just starting on all around. His hair is falling to the pavement with a grin on his face. Your haircut is looking good, young man, Lander told him. Bigger got a call. It was a fight between two men at a laundromat down the block. Bigger and his team of violence interrupters in Brownsville. So now what you need to understand here is Bigger is paid by the city of New York. And he has a team. And your local police precincts are improperly staffed. Because why? Like we just said, $100 million is being put towards this program. You know what that's a result of? Yes, you got it. Defund the police. Here we go. And honestly, this is a precursor for what Mondani wants, is his Department of Community Safety. Is ultimately what it is, where he's vowed, I believe it's $400 million for that department. So Violence Out jumped into action, hustling from the end of the block and across the street. When they arrived, a tense crowd had formed, accusations flying, unsubstantiated rumors of a stabbing echoing off storefronts. One of the men involved, who bolted moments earlier, came stumbling back towards the laundromat. The afternoon sunlight illuminating, swollen, and a bloody face from what turned out to be a fistfight. Bigger and the interrupteds, wary that the man might go back in swinging, stepped between him and the potential for more violence. Within moments, shouts began to soften into tense but real conversation. Bigger warned the man of potential repercussions. You just told all these people out here you know where he lives, he said. What do you think could happen? The man turned around and left. No stretcher, no flashing lights, no trip to the precinct. What could have been an ugly moment turned into something smaller. And for that handful of tense minutes, public safety in the heart of Brownsville was in the hands of its own residents. And for the founders of the Brownsville Safety Alliance, that is exactly the point. We'll go further into this article, but right based on that alone, guy gets assaulted. He's yelling back at the person that assaulted him. The violence interrupters just tell him to walk away. What do you see as problems with that?
Yeah. Well. I mean, what if weapons are involved here? I don't understand this. What's the response times on this? You know, I mean, these guys are gonna, if they get how do they determine which jobs go to the violence interrupter? Which level of, I mean, we got an assault in progress. There's weapons involved. So we call the cops instead of the violence interrupter. I don't understand how this works exactly. And what if they get there and the guy pulls out a gun? You know, what do they have? What are they gonna do? Do they, you know? I just don't understand how this works at all, and I don't understand like what sort of metrics we have to measure the quality of service that they're giving. You know, what's their response times? What do they take a report? Do they take it? They're not taking any names. So what's to prevent retaliation at, some other location, what's to prevent this from escalating into like a simple beef between two people into like a gang beef, there's like, the same accountability that these same progressives, and they're progressives behind us, okay? The same accountability that they scream at the police all the time, okay? Even though, again, when it comes to the boots on the ground, uh, there's there's so much oversight on cops on the ground. We talk about in particular the problems with the top, how there's lack of oversight at the top, and that there's lack of accountability at the top. But at the boots on the grounds level, you have so much oversight. But yet progressives always complain about, the cops, they can do whatever they want. No, they can't. And yet here these progressives are pushing for groups to take the job of policing, and they have no accountability. They have nothing to measure their job performance. Okay, I just don't get it. It's bizarre.
These violence protectors don't understand the Constitution. They're not trained in Supreme Court case law. If anything, they will most likely violate someone's rights more likely than a trained police officer with no training. And again, they're not doing a full investigation based on the scenario that John provided from this article. They just told him walk away. So what happens later on when that person comes back and gets a firearm and shoots that adversary because they're pissed that they got into a fight? There's no investigation. Oh, let's just break them up. This is just complete insanity. But you know what? Let's go further with this article, John. I can't even believe that this is real, and just the bias we see towards police. Somehow the police are the bad guy.
So I think what's important about that scenario though is really what Marlon said, is like there's really no accountability there whatsoever. So one, you get a guy that gets assaulted, and Chip, the journalist here, is trying to say like, oh, that's it, the situation's over. How do we know that? How do we know that there wasn't further gang violence immediately after? How do we know that a weapon wasn't used after? Why shouldn't we have documented that incident? There was a crime that happened. A man was assaulted. He was beat up. He's threatening further violence. Should cops not be involved in that? How do we know that the violence interrupters that responded that day weren't biased, weren't friends with either the male that got beat up or the male that beat the other individual up? How do we know that there wasn't a bias for that person and they took the side of another person? Go walk away, get out of here. How do we know that there wasn't information from, because ultimately what you have there is a victim, right? Ultimately, the man that got beat up, what he was a victim. The services he got were told, keep it walking. Move on. Might have worked when you're 18, 19, 20 and you get in a fist fight and you don't want the cops there. About when you're a 75-year-old woman walking down the block and you get robbed and beat up. Do you want to be told to keep walking? Because, oh, yeah, that was my boy that robbed her. And the same thing like what Eric's alluding to with CCRB and all the oversight. The police department is the most heavily scrutinized job in the world. And I'm talking about the NYPD. There's not a second. There's not a close second. They might be 1, 2, and 3 for the amount of oversight they're there. And now we have this rogue, unaccountable, basically civilian police force running around and dictating scenarios and dictating to victims what they're going to do. Dictating to perpetrators what they're going to do. And again, what we've seen in New York City is that some of these violence interrupters have been arrested, been involved in drug sales, been involved in the sale of illegal firearms. And they are solely unaccountable, even in their own personal actions outside of work. They're unaccountable in their actions inside of work. They're unaccountable in each scenario that they handle. When you're a police officer, my friend told me one time, I had about 10 years on the job. I was a sergeant. He's like, describe your job to me. I was like, sure. I was like, I go to a job, 911 call, or I investigate a crime, and I handle that situation the best way I can know how, within the law, within my training, and I follow that to a T. And then when I wrap that all up, either if it's through an arrest or if it was a crime scene that I handled or it was an investigation that I conducted, I sit there and I wonder how many ways to Sunday my own job's going to screw me, never mind how it's going to be scrutinized in the media. That's basically the job of an NYPD cop. And now you have these violence interrupters running around dictating what's happening at these emergency incidents with victims, and literally no one knows what happened. So when the commanding officer is there telling you, no, assaults are down in my precinct, violent crimes down in my precinct, is it really? Or do you really just mean what Jessica Tisch means, is that reported violent crimes down? Because that's exactly what it is. And it the way it's being painted in this article is not accurate. So let's go further. If it ain't a murder, let us help. We can lower the 911 calls for you.
In the comptroller's report, they said the CMS program, which is where the violence interrupter is part of, it has contributed to 1,567 fewer shootings, right? Now, here's what's screwy. In the same report, one paragraph below, they said management and leadership deficiencies. They say the city lacks standardized approach to data collection. They said CVI organizations lack access to city data. The city lacks a comprehensive evaluation framework for CMS programs. So how is it that you can say the program contributed to fewer shootings? It's a success, it contributed to fewer shootings, if you don't have any standards and you yourself say there's no standards.
There are so many layers to peel back here. I think some people ask, like, how does this affect crime stats? And I think we spoke about, I think this is a CompStat wet dream. This is a CompStat wet dream. If you're a commanding officer in a precinct and you got violence interrupters squashing stuff or taking care of beefs and it's not getting reported, well, guess what? You got no crimes there, because we monitor and track crimes based on what's reported. If a crime's not reported, did it happen, right? We always say, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it fall? Well, the same thing. If something happens and if no one reports it, well, it's not a documented crime. And that is a CompStat wet dream. It really is. But you know what I find interesting about this? I think that ultimately they're trying to demonize the police and say, like, and demonize the whole uniform, right? That's why plainclothes police officers are okay in this. But the reality is, I think eventually, and because of human nature, they don't realize it, this will eventually look like a quasi-police force. Because right now we have these violence interrupters out there, or this desire to have this in a police-free zone. How will the violence interrupters be identified? Will they have an armband? Will they have a uniform? Will they have a cap, a name, right? There's going to be some way or shape or form that they need to be identifiable. And then once that is established, how will they logistics, the violence interrupters, will they travel in cars? Will they walk in the neighborhood? Because they need to be mobile. And if they do travel in cars, will those cars be marked? Will it say violence interrupter? Will it look like a police car? Will it be unmarked? Will they have the authority to go against violence? Go against traffic laws if there's an emergency that is not a police emergency, but an emergency for the violence interrupters? Will they have the ability to put a light on their car and travel fast to the neighborhood? I mean, to me, that's almost like police work, right? That's policing. Identifiable, a uniform type, a car that's identifiable. What will these violence interrupters be permitted to carry? Will they carry pepper spray, batons? Will they carry firearms? What are they allowed to carry? And then let's talk about force, right? Because you talk about George Floyd. What type of force will these violence interrupters be allowed to apply? Because police officers are not allowed to put any pressure on the diaphragm law, on the diaphragm, right? That's what the diaphragm law, and it says specifically police officers, but it doesn't say violence interrupters can't put any pressure on the diaphragm. So that's a great question, Marlon. Can a violence interrupter take someone down to the ground and put belly pressure with their knee on someone's belly to hold them down and maintain control? What capacity? What's the apparatus for the violence interrupters? And I think ultimately the reality is, because of human nature, it's going to segue and look like a police force. Just the only difference is this is going to be a police force that has no training or lacks training. They don't have training how to handle people, how to talk to them. Is there going to be a civilian complaint review board? Are you going to be able to make a complaint against the violence interrupters because of the interaction you had? Were they discourteous? Did they use offensive language? I mean, again, remove the police all you want. You will always have some form of policing. The difference is, will it be violence interrupters? Will it be a gang? Will it be a crew? Will it be a mafia? You cannot remove human nature. Since society has been around, since God has created men, society needs someone to maintain order and needs control. If not, people will kill each other. So remove the police, you'll have violence interrupters. They'll be the police. So if this scary word is the word police, we'll always have some type of entity doing police work.
Yeah, I mean, I to me, I'm just like, so what it sounds like to me, honestly, when I look at it like an overview, it's taxpayer funded crime families. That's what it is, without body cameras. And they go around and they police the streets in the community. Nobody knows what happens. Everything gets done in a shroud of secrecy. And ultimately, you really don't know the result of their action, you know, because I'm just going to go back one more time to that incident in the article where the male's assaulted. Who did the violence interrupters deal with? Who did the violence interrupters tell to take a walk? They told the victim to take a walk. What did the violence interrupters do about the man who beat up the victim? We don't know. Did they approach him? Doesn't sound like it. Is there any repercussion? Was there any talk with him for further violence? How do we know that the man that beat that man up didn't just go to look for him again to do it later? You de-escalated who? You de-escalated the victim. But you didn't de-escalate the perpetrator. And so that on its face just fails to me. Right. It's like glaring. It's glaring that scenario was not helped. And I would, if I had to guess, just growing up in New York City and knowing how things work, I guarantee that there's a lot more to that story. And there's a lot of stuff that happened after that story that wasn't reported. I guarantee that was not the end of that situation. We don't know who the aggressor was. It could have been actually the guy who winds up being the victim because he gets beat up. But we don't know. Did they actually properly even find that out? Did they investigate it? We don't know. You know, so I think, you know, when I hear that, it's like, oh, if it's not a murder, let us handle that. You know what that's saying? Defund the NYPD, give us all your money, and you guys just come in when it's really bad. Let us handle this. It's taxpayer-funded crime families, zero accountability, no body cameras, and we have no idea what's happening. And you know, and the fact that the police commissioner is not saying anything about this, the fact that it's not properly documented what's occurring, and the fact that it's for such a short window, to me, it just looks like a huge grift. It looks like it's not effective at all. And I'll tell you right now, if any way I ever become the mayor of New York City, it's the first thing that's getting defunded. It's the absolute first thing. I'm getting rid of the violence intervention program because I don't, you know, it's been going on for a long time now, and there are zero metrics to prove why it's effective. And there are zero success stories that are public. There's zero transparency in the program. So if it's something that needs to be done, we could scale back, we could take it down, we could start over, we could actually track it. Right now, I see it as a huge grift, further defund the police movement. It's not anything that I support in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's a huge waste of taxpayer money. And I think it does nothing to alleviate crime in the neighborhood. If you're out there as a supportive group, 100%, I could see that. But again, the NYPD is held accountable to the public. Who are you guys held accountable to?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that Mamdani wants to expand this program and pour more money into it is, and also include other, departments like he's mentioned about the social workers and psychologists responding to it. You kind of wonder if how many other agencies are they gonna would they like to expand this to? and kind of make you service your own community, even though you're paying taxes for these government services.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.